Hello and welcome back once again to the Shakey Sonnet Show. I am Tootight Lautrec, the drag laureate of the Sonnetarium, and we are here once again in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library, which may or may not have some lions couchant on the front steps who appear to be holding up pretty well despite time's fell hand. Today we're going to be revisiting a familiar topic in Sonnets 64 and 65, which are two more contemplations on fading beauty, as if I needed to be reminded. And here in Sonnet 64 and 65, or I guess I should say finally, I have to wonder at the superficiality of the narrator. There is such a thing as inner beauty, Mr. Shakespeare. It's not all tight skin and flat stomachs and bulging muscles and long eyelashes. Not that there have been any specific references to any such qualities in these sonnets, but my goodness, beauty, beauty, beauty. It's all about youth and beauty. And while sexual attraction is indeed important, it's not the be-all and end-all of love. In the early sonnets, in sonnets 1 through 17, Mr. Shakespeare used physical beauty as a tool to chide a youth of some sort, male or female, but we think it's a male, to chide a youth into procreating by appealing to vanity in order to keep the line of beauty going on down the line. And now, in these later sonnets, there is no object of a child or future generations in view. It's merely poetry that's going to keep the beauty alive. But I ask you, what about generosity? What about humor? What about intelligence? Where are the poems that keep these qualities alive for all of posterity? Well, they're not here, or they're not here yet as far as I can see. So let's look at what we've got and get started right off the bat with Sonnet 64. And here we go, Sonnet 64. When I have seen by time's fell hand defaced the rich proud cost of outworn buried age, when sometime lofty towers I see down raised, and brass eternal, slave to mortal rage, when I have seen the hungry ocean gain advantage on the kingdom of the shore, and the firm soil win of the watery main, increasing store with loss and loss with store, when I have seen such interchange of state, or state itself confounded to decay, ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate, that time will come and take my love away. This thought is as a death, which cannot choose but weep to have that which it fears to lose. Well, that's really quite a nice contemplation, I do have to say. And this structure of the when is similar to the structure that we saw in Sonnet 15, but it's different. Sonnet 15 was when, then. Let's look at it. Sonnet 15 started out with when I consider everything that grows, and then when I perceive that men as plants increase, then the conceit of this inconstant stay. There's that inconstant stay again that I love. And all in war is the couplet. But here we have a structure that's similar. We've got three whens, and it's different because they bypass the logical then and go directly to the couplet with this thought is as a death, which is much more direct and much more dire and much more forceful. So the first quatrain, when I have seen by time's fell hand defaced, and I do love that fell, that word fell. It means ruined, it means deathly. Time's fell hand defaced. This rich proud cost of outworn buried age, when sometime lofty towers I see down raised, when I've seen buildings taken down to the ground in the matter of in Shakespeare's time, who knows, could be months or days, and brass eternal, slave to mortal rage. And apparently there was, during Shakespeare's life, Henry VIII had, when they converted from Catholicism to Protestantism, Henry VIII had many monasteries either demolished completely or converted into municipal buildings. So here we're dealing with architecture in the first quatrain. In the second quatrain, when I have seen the hungry ocean gain advantage on the kingdom of the shore, and the firm soil win of the watery main, increasing store with loss and loss with store. Here we have the earth and the sea overtaking the land and washing it away as erosion. And apparently global weirding was even a thing in Shakespeare's time, but it seems to have gotten much worse in our own. But this line, increasing store with loss and loss with store, it does give the sense of the waves coming up and washing away the shore, coming up further and washing away more of the shore, coming up further and even washing away more of the shore until there's nothing left but more water. So earth and ocean in the second quatrain. And then in the third quatrain, when I have seen such interchange of state. And state here could mean states of matter, solid to liquid, as in the earth and the shore, the earth and the ocean. But it could also mean state as in the kingdom, which it goes on to say, when I have seen such interchange of state, or state itself confounded to decay. And here decay can act either as a noun or a verb. So it can be decay, a decaying kingdom, or it could be the decay of a kingdom. Followed by my favorite line of almost all time. Ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate. When I've seen all this stuff, ruin hath taught me to ruminate. And the similar sound of ruminate to ruin just reinforces it. Ruin hath taught me thus to ruminate, that time will come and take my love away, which is really beautiful. And then the couplet. After all of this, when I've seen buildings topple, when I've seen the earth being eroded, when I've seen even kingdoms being changed, rising and falling kingdoms as happens in the world. When I've seen all of this, this thought is as a death, which cannot choose but weep to have that which it fears to lose. The idea that my love will be taken away. This thought is as a death, and it's got that wonderful monosyllabic drumbeat. This thought is as a death, to really drive the point home. This is devastating, that I could lose my love. And then we have this rather confusing, the 14th line. This thought is as a death which cannot choose but weep to have that which it fears to lose. I've been actually relying a lot more on Catherine Duncan-Jones lately, and she says that this weep to have can be thought to mean weep with desire to possess. So when I think about this, I can only weep thinking of what I desire to possess. The thing that I most desire to possess is the thing that I would fear to lose, which is my love. So that's really quite extraordinary. And that couplet, this thought is as a death which cannot choose but weep to think about the things that I would lose. That couplet really captures that moment of weird happiness when you're blithely walking through the world, paying attention to all the wonders that are there, and just when you're at the height of reveling in those wonders, bam, it hits you. This will all end one day. And in one way, it heightens the enjoyment of what's happening in the moment, the wonders that you're experiencing, but it also, can be a bit of a downer too, when you think about, well, this will end, if you contemplate that for a little bit too long. And then when you apply that feeling to a love relationship, that this too may end one day, or the life of someone that you love, wow, hard times. The sirens start going and then they stop. But it's really hard times. And I'm not talking about hard times of the frolicking sort. That is, unless you're Stephen Booth, who has this to say about Sonnet 64. And I'll read you this end note to his annotations to Sonnet 64. It's really, this book really is quite a wonderful source for looking at the sonnets, because it really just delves so deeply, probably far more deeply than you would ever really want to delve. But Stephen Booth says this about Sonnet 64. This poem is full of words regularly used with sexual connotations. No sexual sense is active at any given point in the poem, but the cumulative effect of the diction is to invoke a vague aura of reference to male helplessness, to postpone the moment of sexual climax and the general collapse and sexual helplessness that follows sexual emission. And then he says, note proud, and he references words that he's talked about in other sonnets. Proud in Sonnet 151, founded in Sonnets 26 and 59 and 60, and also 151. Death, which is a pseudonymous or another word for orgasm in Elizabethan times, which cannot choose, weep, and have in Sonnet 87, he notes. All of these things could carry a sexual connotation. I can see it, but I don't really see it. It's still quite interesting, though, that we have Stephen Booth to keep it sexy for us. So another source that I've been relying on quite a bit lately, I won't bring it up here now, but it's the Hyder Edward Rollins Variorum that was published in 1943 or 1945. And in there, he notes that a critic named C.L. Finney believes that Keats took Sonnet 64 as the model for his own first Shakespearean sonnet, or English sonnet, When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be, which is really quite a lovely poem, which you should read. And if you have never read it, or if you've never heard it, I did do a lip sync of this, of Jo Beth Williams reading this poem, and I'll link that below. It's really quite a wonderful poem. There's another critic named Francis Turner Palgrave who felt that Sonnet 64, 65, and 66 formed one long poem, but as one of my goals in this series is to try to keep these segments somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes. We'll talk about that more separately when we talk about 66 separately. But let's look at 65 as if it were an extension of 64. And we'll go straight into it. Following it up, 65. Since brass, nor stone, nor earth, nor boundless sea, but sad mortality o'ersways their power, how with this rage shall beauty hold a plea whose action is no stronger than a flower? Oh, how shall summer's honey breath hold out against the wrackful siege of battering days, when rocks impregnable are not so stout, nor gates of steel so strong, but time decays? O fearful meditation! Where, alack, shall time's best jewel from time's chest lie hid? Or what strong hand can hold his swift foot back? Or who his spoil of beauty can forbid? Oh, none, unless this miracle have might, that in black ink my love may still shine bright. Okay, so right off the bat, straight away, the first line, since brass, nor stone, nor earth, no boundless sea, directly references 3 quatrains of Sonnet 64. And line 3, how with this rage, how with what rage, you may ask, go back to Sonnet 64, and in line 4, mortal rage, the rage that decays everything. So we have the references to 64 even in there. And this first line is really quite nice. It's got the since brass nor stone nor earth nor boundless sea, those slight little, the ends and the r's that are just, you know, slip right off the tongue so easily, is followed by but sad mortality, these hard consonants that just stop it. Nor stone, nor earth, nor boundless sea, but sad mortality o'erswears the power. So we have the stopping it of the B's and the T's and especially the mortality, the two T's and the mortality. It's really quite nice. How shall this rage hold a plea whose action is no stronger than a flower? Now that's an unexpected bit, and I feel that it's a bit of genius, this to compare the most powerful things on earth, the most strongly constructed things, to a beautiful little flower that we know bends with the wind and the rain and decays within days sometimes. Really, really lovely. Now in the second quatrain, oh how shall summer's honey breath, which is also quite nice, summer's honey breath, hold out against the wrackful siege of battering days. And here again we have the wrackful siege of battering days, the violence of what time can do. When rocks impregnable are not so stout. Rocks impregnable, I guess meaning like castle walls that can't be conquered or entered. Rocks impregnable are not so stout, nor gates of seals so strong, but time decays. All these things are subject to time, and they're no better than a flower that arrives one day and then decays the next, or even like a morning glory that arrives at maybe 7 a.m. when the sun comes up and by noon is all withered and going to seed. And then we get this in the third quatrain, oh fearful meditation. It stops the flow of the poem completely, and it's a very effective stopping point, because you do have to think, well, let us think about this, let us meditate on it. Where, alack, shall time's best jewel from time's chest lie hid? Or what strong hand can hold his swift foot back, or who his spoil of beauty can forbid? Now, a lot of these lines are contested over the ages. This idea of time's chest has been disputed. Some believe that it refers to the carcanet holding chest that we saw in Sonnet 59. There is a scholar named Kellner who suggested that chest was actually theft because the THs and the CHs and the S's and the F's were often confused by typesetters, but most scholars keep the chest there. So who can hide my jewel and keep it safe? Or what strong hand can hold his swift foot back? His meaning time's, how can you catch time in the middle of his race and stop him from wrecking the ruin that he does on people's faces? Or who his spoil of beauty can forbid? And this spoil of beauty, in the 1609 quarto, it actually says spoil or beauty. And so different editors do different things with this. Stephen Booth lobbies for keeping the or. Catherine Duncan-Jones lobbies for or O''er as if over. But everyone else just goes with of, and because they feel that makes sense. But either way, his spoil, either his spoil or his beauty, no one can stop time, either of those. That works. Or no one can stop time's spoil of beauty. He grabs beauty and takes it as one of the spoils of war, or the spoil over beauty, as Catherine Duncan-Jones says. So either one of those could work, but we'll stick with of, as most editors do. And then we have these 5 questions followed by an answer, which is the couplet. Who can stop all this? Who can keep time from doing all this? Who can keep my love alive? Oh, none is the answer. Or maybe the answer is really or me? Oh, none, unless this miracle have might, power, that in black ink my love shall still shine bright. So my love, or the love that I have for my beloved, or my beloved, either way, will still shine bright in black ink like a star in an inky black night. So that's quite lovely, and nothing that we haven't heard before, but still rather cleverly executed, I would say. Now, is there an indication of whether there's a man or a woman, either as the narrator or as the beloved? No, neither. And in fact, neither sonnet is a direct address to a beloved, but it's simply they're both simply abstract contemplations. It's the beloved alone. So dramatically, where might we place this in Shakespeare's plays? I guess any superficial lover anywhere that appears in the play, or any bombastic, egotistical poet could be another source in one of the plays, perhaps in Love's Labour's Lost, but I think not, because that's more of a sillier play, and this is really quite dire. Or any other place where lovers are separated and one of them is worried about the passage of time and how it will affect the beloved's looks. So narratively, if we're thinking about this in the series 1 through 154, narratively, where does that leave our lovers? Well, they are still separated. It's still quite superficial. And so possibly after being separated for such a long stretch, the narrator actually sees signs, maybe the last time that they were together, maybe the narrator actually saw signs of, shall we say, seasoning or maturity on the beloved's face, and begins to get a bit bothered by that. Or the beloved, the last time they were together, is even more beautiful than ever, and the anxiety of losing that beauty increases even more. That's a possibility. But certainly, the fact that these are abstract contemplations, not direct addresses to the beauty, does reinforce the idea that they are separated. So one would hope that in the interim of the time spent apart, the narrator just might contemplate other qualities of the beloved, perhaps a sense of humor, perhaps a philosophical bent of mind, perhaps kindness or generosity or intelligence. But no, beauty, beauty, beauty. It's just one big beauty call. Well, one takes what one can get. And I do have to say, though, that as an outro to this video, it does put me in mind of a really achingly beautiful song by Lana Del Rey that appeared in the Great Gatsby soundtrack, and it is called Young and Beautiful. And one of the lines is, "Will you still love me when I'm no longer young and beautiful?" And it's really kind of an achingly beautiful poem, or a beautiful song. And I'll link that below, and I'll link the video that goes with it, because that's really quite beautiful too. So until we meet again, world, wonder, pay attention. I'm Tootight Lautrec.
Hello, I am Tootight Lautrec, and this is Sapatam.